Chosen one, this moment was arranged long before you ever pressed play. Something within you felt the pull before your mind could explain it. A quiet knowing, a spiritual nudge, a whisper saying, "This is for you." You've been walking through shadows lately, carrying questions you couldn't name, feeling investigated by life itself. The silence, the delays, the unanswered prayers, they weren't random. Heaven has been watching closely, and now, at this exact second, light is breaking through. You've survived things no one applauded you for. Battles fought in secret, tears shed without witnesses. You smiled while your spirit was searching for meaning. And still, you kept going. Not because it was easy, but because something divine refused to let you quit. That confusion you felt, that tension between calling and delay, it was evidence that you were being prepared, not pushed away. And chosen one, before we go deeper, pause for a moment. Hit subscribe and comment if your spirit is already responding. Because this message is about to speak directly to you, not as content, but as confirmation. Listen closely now. There were doors you begged God to open that stayed shut. Opportunities that slipped through your fingers at the last second. Seasons where you felt overlooked, underestimated, even forgotten. But what looked like divine no was actually divine timing at work. God was protecting you from entering too early, from standing unshielded in rooms you hadn't yet been fortified for. Heaven does not rush what it intends to crown. You were being refined in the waiting, strengthened in the shadow, trained in silence. Every delay sharpened your discernment. Every closed door redirected your steps with surgical precision. The enemy thought the setback would break you, but it built you. And now, the pieces are aligning in ways you can't fully see yet. But your spirit recognizes the shift. This message didn't find you by accident. It arrived because the breakthrough is closer than it's ever been. God said no because yes was too powerful to give you unprepared. Stay with me. What's about to be revealed will change how you see every delay, every denial, every detour. And you'll finally understand why your faith was never wasted. Chosen one, let's slow this moment down and step back into that season. The one that still aches when you think about it. The moment God said no, not softly, not clearly, but in a way that felt like silence, delay, or denial. You prayed with sincerity. You believed with everything in you. And when the answer didn't come the way you expected, it felt personal. It felt like rejection. Have you ever wondered why something you wanted so badly was taken out of your hands at the very last moment? At the time, you couldn't see it. All you felt was confusion, disappointment, maybe even embarrassment. You questioned your worth, your discernment, your calling. You asked yourself, did I misunderstand God? Did I do something wrong? Why would He bring me this far just to say no? But what if that no was never about your value? What if it was about your safety? Looking back now with clearer spiritual vision, you begin to notice something sacred hiding inside that painful moment. That door you begged God to open. Imagine if it had opened too soon. Imagine if you had stepped into that relationship, that opportunity, that environment without the wisdom, strength, or discernment you carry today. Would it have built you or broken you? Sometimes God sees storms forming behind doors that look like blessings from the outside. God's no was not punishment. It was protection. Protection from people who would have drained your spirit. Protection from paths that looked right but were misaligned. Protection from losses that would have cost you more than you were prepared to pay. You didn't know what was waiting on the other side, but God did. And He loved you too much to let you walk blindly into it. Think about it. Have you ever narrowly avoided something, only to later realize how dangerous it truly was? A connection that ended abruptly. A plan that collapsed unexpectedly. A delay that felt cruel in the moment, but merciful in hindsight. That wasn't luck. That was divine intervention moving quietly, even when you couldn't feel it. God doesn't always explain His no, because explanation isn't what builds faith. Trust is. And in that season, trust was the lesson. He was teaching you how to listen beyond emotion, how to surrender outcomes, how to let Him lead even when the path went dark. That no was shaping your discernment. It was strengthening your spiritual instincts. It was preparing you to recognize the difference between what looks good and what is God. So, chosen one, if you're still carrying pain from a closed door, ask yourself this gently. What did that no save me from? What version of myself was God protecting? What would I have lost if I had gotten what I wanted back then? When you ask those questions honestly, revelation begins to rise. God's no was never the end of your story. It was a divine pause, a holy interruption, designed to keep you aligned with your true destiny. And now, as you stand here with greater wisdom and deeper strength, you can see it clearly. You weren't rejected. You were covered. Chosen one. Let's talk about the silence, the kind that presses against your chest when prayers seem to echo back unanswered. Not the peaceful silence, but the heavy one. The kind that makes you wonder if heaven has gone quiet, if God has turned away, if you're walking this path alone. Have you ever whispered, "God, where are you?" and felt like the air itself refused to answer? That silence was not abandonment. It was timing. There are seasons when God speaks loudly, and there are seasons when He speaks through stillness. When He goes quiet, it doesn't mean He stopped moving. It means His work shifted from what you can hear to what you cannot yet see. While you were waiting, questioning, and holding on by faith alone, heaven was arranging details far beyond your reach. Connections were being aligned. Delays were being recalibrated. Outcomes were being protected from arriving too soon. Think about how a seed grows. It doesn't make noise underground. There's no announcement, no visible proof at first, just darkness, pressure, and patience. If you judge the seed by silence alone, you would think nothing was happening. But everything is happening. Roots are forming. Strength is developing. Direction is being set. And chosen one, your silent season was never empty. It was foundational. God knew that if He explained everything too early, you would move ahead of His timing. So instead, He taught you how to trust without clarity, how to believe without evidence, how to rest without reassurance. That's not neglect. That's spiritual training. Silence stretches your faith in ways constant confirmation never could. It asks a deeper question. Will you trust me even when I don't speak? Have you noticed how the quiet seasons changed you? How you became more discerning, less reactive, more anchored? How you stopped depending on signs and started leaning into surrender? That didn't happen by accident. God was strengthening your inner hearing, teaching you to recognize His presence even when His voice felt distant. Some blessings cannot survive early exposure. If they arrive before the right maturity, they collapse under pressure. That's why God sometimes withholds explanation while He perfects preparation. The silence protects what's coming, and it protects you. It keeps you from interfering, from rushing, from settling for partial answers when a complete breakthrough is forming. Looking back, you'll realize the moments you thought God was absent were actually the moments He was closest, guarding, adjusting, interceding on your behalf. You just couldn't see His hands because He was working behind the curtain. So if you're still standing in a quiet place, don't panic. Don't assume you've been forgotten. Ask yourself instead, what is God preparing me for? What needs to be aligned before the next chapter can begin? Who am I becoming in this stillness? Chosen one, silence is not the end of the conversation. It's the space where destiny matures. And when the timing is right, the same God who seemed quiet will speak with undeniable clarity. Until then, rest, trust. The work is already in motion. Chosen one, there is a pattern in the Spirit that few people recognize until they've lived through it. Faith is always tested right before elevation, right before the breakthrough, right before the door finally opens. And the test never looks like a blessing. It looks like pressure. It looks like uncertainty. It looks like everything you believed in being questioned all at once. Have you noticed how the weight increased just when you thought you couldn't carry anymore? This is the moment many people misunderstand. They assume the struggle means they are going backward, when in truth, they are being measured for what's next. God never promotes what hasn't been proven. So before He lifts you, He allows the shaking. Before He entrusts you with more, He watches how you steward less. And before He reveals the promise, He tests the posture of your heart. Will you still trust Him when the outcome is unclear? Think back to the season when doubt crept in quietly, not as rebellion, but as exhaustion. You weren't trying to walk away. You were just tired of holding on. Fear whispered questions your faith couldn't immediately answer. What if this doesn't work? What if I heard God wrong? What if I've been waiting for nothing? Those thoughts didn't make you weak. They made you human. The test was never about having no fear. It was about choosing trust in the presence of fear. Pressure has a way of revealing what's real. When everything is comfortable, faith feels easy. But when resources dry up, when support fades, when answers delay, that's when faith becomes an action, not just a belief. God was watching how you responded in that narrow place, not to judge you, but to prepare you. Because elevation requires endurance, and endurance is only built under weight. Have you ever wondered why things intensified right before they changed? Why the resistance grew stronger just before the shift? That's because the final test often appears as opposition. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't advancing. And God doesn't allow testing without purpose. What you survived was not meant to stop you. It was meant to stretch your capacity so you could hold what's coming. Every time you chose to pray instead of quit, to believe instead of become bitter, to stay faithful instead of fold, something was being recorded in the Spirit. You were being refined, not rejected, strengthened, not stalled. The fire didn't consume you because it was never sent to destroy you. It was sent to prove you were ready. Elevation is not just about where God takes you. It's about who you become on the way there. If the test had ended you, the blessing would have overwhelmed you. So God allowed the trial to finish its work. He let endurance mature. He let faith deepen beyond feelings and into conviction. So, chosen one, if you're wondering why it felt hardest right before things shifted, ask yourself this: what did that season teach me about trust? How did I grow under pressure? Who did I become when quitting was an option? Those answers are evidence that elevation is not ahead of you. It's already in motion. Stay steady. You didn't endure all of this for nothing. The test was real because the calling is real. And what God is about to release will only make sense because of what you survived. Chosen one, there is a moment in every divine journey where the battle intensifies without warning. Not gradually, suddenly. The pressure multiplies, the resistance sharpens, and it feels as though every weakness is being targeted at once. This is often the point where people assume they're losing ground. But in the spirit, this is usually the sign that victory is dangerously close. Have you noticed how the fight became fiercest right when you were about to break through? The hardest battles rarely announce themselves as preparation. They come disguised as exhaustion, emotional overload, spiritual warfare, and unexpected obstacles all colliding at once. Your peace was tested. Your focus was attacked. Even your identity felt questioned. The enemy didn't need to invent new strategies. He simply tried to overwhelm you with intensity. Why? Because something significant was about to shift, and resistance always rises when destiny is near. Think about it. Storms don't gather strength when nothing is changing. They intensify at transition points, right before the sea parts, right before the wall falls, right before the door opens. What you experienced was not random chaos. It was strategic opposition. And the fact that you're still standing is proof that the battle did not have the final word. There were moments when the weight felt unbearable, when rest didn't restore you the way it used to, when your prayers became shorter, not because your faith was gone, but because the fight was heavy. You may have even wondered, why is this happening now, of all times? But what if the timing itself was the clue? What if the struggle increased because the breakthrough was already in motion? Spiritual resistance often peaks when something is about to be released. The enemy senses movement before you see it. And God allows the final stretch of battle not to harm you, but to strengthen your authority. You were learning how to stand without needing constant reassurance, how to worship without immediate relief, how to trust even when emotions were under attack. That wasn't weakness. That was spiritual maturity forming under fire. Have you noticed how much stronger you are now? How the same attacks don't shake you the way they once did? That's because the battle refined your endurance. It forced you to lean into God in new ways. It stripped away dependence on comfort and replaced it with conviction. Victory doesn't arrive to those who escape the fight. It arrives to those who endure it. Chosen one, the intensity of the struggle was never a sign that you were failing. It was evidence that you were advancing. The closer you get to purpose, the louder resistance becomes, not because you're weak, but because what you carry is valuable. And the enemy only fights what he fears. So if you're in a season where the battle feels relentless, ask yourself this: what is on the other side of this resistance? What shift is about to happen that requires this level of opposition? Why would the fight be this fierce if nothing was coming? Let those questions ground you instead of overwhelm you. Victory often arrives quietly after the loudest fight. And when it does, you'll realize something powerful. The hardest battles didn't come to destroy you. They came to announce that you were closer than you thought. Stay steady. The breakthrough is nearer than it feels. Chosen one, let's speak honestly about the waiting. The long, quiet stretch of time where days blended together and progress felt invisible. The season where you kept moving forward without proof that anything was changing. Waiting can feel like standing still while the world passes you by. It can make you question your pace, your progress, even your purpose. But what if the delay was never meant to slow you down, only to strengthen you? Waiting has a way of revealing what rushing would destroy. In those delayed seasons, your patience was being stretched beyond comfort. Your reactions were being refined. You learned how to pause before responding, how to breathe before reacting, how to listen instead of forcing outcomes. That didn't happen overnight. It happened through repetition, through moments where you wanted answers but chose trust instead. Have you noticed how much steadier you are now compared to who you were before the wait began? Every delay was shaping your inner foundation. God was developing resilience where fragility once lived. You were learning how to endure uncertainty without losing hope, how to stand without constant reassurance, how to remain faithful even when nothing was visibly rewarding. That kind of strength cannot be rushed. If the blessing had arrived early, it might have crushed you under its weight. But now you're different. Think about the wisdom you carry today, the discernment that didn't exist before, the boundaries you now recognize as necessary, the clarity you gained through disappointment. Those lessons were not accidental. They were formed in the waiting. God was aligning your character with your calling, ensuring that when the opportunity arrives, it won't just elevate you, it will sustain you. Have you ever considered that some prayers take longer because they require you to grow into the answer? God doesn't just prepare blessings, He prepares people. And in your delay, He was teaching you how to handle responsibility, how to steward favor, how to remain grounded when momentum returns. Purpose requires patience, and patience is born in seasons that feel unproductive but are deeply transformational. There were moments when you felt overlooked, as if others were advancing while you remained in place. But comparison fades when purpose becomes clear. God wasn't ignoring you. He was investing in you. While others were rushing ahead, you were being fortified, strengthened in ways that don't show immediately, but last a lifetime. So, chosen one, if you're tempted to see your delays as detours, ask yourself this: who did I become during the wait? What weaknesses were strengthened? What wisdom was gained that success alone could never teach me? Those answers revealed the truth. The waiting was working. Nothing about that season was wasted. Not a single moment of patience. Not a single tear of endurance. You were being shaped for sustainability, not just arrival. And when the blessing finally comes, you won't just receive it. You'll be ready to hold it, protect it, and walk in it with confidence. The delay didn't deny your destiny. It prepared you for it. Chosen one, there comes a moment, quiet, almost sacred, when the breakthrough finally arrives. Not always with noise or spectacle, but with clarity, with alignment, with a deep inner knowing that settles into your spirit and says, "Now I understand." In that moment, the pain of the past doesn't disappear, but it transforms. The confusion softens. The questions lose their sharp edge. And you begin to see the divine pattern that was forming all along. When the door finally opens, you don't rush through it the way you once would have. You pause. You recognize the weight of what's been entrusted to you. You sense the difference between wanting something and being ready for it. And suddenly, every closed door before this one reveals its purpose. If God had said yes back then to that opportunity, that relationship, that plan, you wouldn't be standing here now. Not with this strength, not with this wisdom, not with this peace. The breakthrough doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your perspective. You realize the no was never about denial. It was about direction. God was guiding you away from shortcuts and toward substance, away from temporary wins and toward lasting fulfillment. The delays weren't random pauses. They were recalibrations, ensuring that when the moment arrived, it would be sustainable. not fragile. Have you noticed how different this victory feels compared to the ones you chased before? There's no panic in it, no fear of losing it, no need to prove anything. That's because this breakthrough came with maturity. You're no longer driven by desperation, but by discernment. And that only happens when a person has walked through waiting, resistance, and refinement. Looking back, you can now see how every no protected the integrity of this moment. God was shielding the blessing from being mishandled. He was shaping you into someone capable of stewarding it with humility and clarity. The plan required patience because it required precision. Timing mattered. Alignment mattered. And you mattered. Ask yourself honestly, what would I have lost if I had received this earlier? Who would I have been without the lessons of delay? Would I have recognized the value of this breakthrough without the journey that preceded it? These questions don't bring regret. They bring gratitude. Now you understand that God doesn't waste time or pain. Every detour was intentional. Every closed door was calculated. Every season of waiting was part of a larger design that only becomes visible from this side of the miracle. The no wasn't an obstacle to the plan. It was the foundation of it. Chosen one, the breakthrough proves something powerful. God's timing is not late, and His refusals are not failures. They are instruments of alignment. And now that you're standing in the fulfillment, you can say with confidence, nothing was lost. Everything led here. This is why your faith mattered. This is why your endurance was necessary. And this is why the no was never the end. It was the beginning of becoming who you needed to be to receive what was always meant for you.